Hello, everyone. I'd love to introduce Dr. Michael Jones to everyone. Dr. Michael Jones is a licensed clinical psychologist who has been practicing for over 35 years. He has had hundreds of patients. Dr. Michael Jones works with, he actually does cognitive behavioral therapy. He treats anxiety, depression, stress, just to name a few. A little bit about Dr. Jones. He loves his dogs. He loves cooking. He plays the guitar. Gosh, is there anything that you don't do? He also is a master in martial arts. He's been doing martial arts essentially his whole life. He has brown belt, black belt. He's competed in many amazing competitions 5 times over. I mean, I could go on for days, Dr. Jones. I just wanted to share a little bit about you. And most importantly, why I have him here today is to talk about therapy and his book. Dr. Jones has recently written a book called The Mindful Path, and it's combining Buddhism and psychotherapy and the practices of Buddhism and psychotherapy. So I would love just to take a minute and say thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us and the listeners.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. So let's just kind of get right into it, Dr. Jones. I'm wondering if you can tell us just a little bit about maybe your background and what inspired you to write this book and combining therapy and Buddhism.
Well, I've always, since I was very young, had an interest in Eastern philosophies, Buddhism in particular. And, you know, it's a study in why people suffer. And it was probably my interest in Buddhism that sort of led my path to be a clinical psychologist, because that's also a study in why people suffer. And so, you know, over the years, talked to people about, you know, one kind of problem or another. And I always found myself flipping back and forth between my clinical psychology training, modern psychotherapy and research and science, and then coming back to Buddhist philosophy. We flipped back and forth over the years. And then it struck me that the reason why I keep flipping back and forth, not because they're distinctly different, is because there's a lot of overlap between the two. And so I thought, well, hey, let's try to, you know, introduce people to that. I didn't really want to do a scholarly academic book. It's more of an introduction. So if you're not familiar with Buddhist philosophy, you know, it kind of hits you with the basics. If you're familiar with Buddhism, but, you know, it's like, well, how do I implement that practice? Well, then I'll introduce you to cognitive behavioral therapy tools. And so there's a lot of overlap, and we just sort of walk through that journey exploring Buddhist concepts as it dovetails with psychotherapy.
And Dr. Jones, let me just insert this. I think it's so important to have something like this for people that may not have these experiences, and even people that have experiences like myself that are, you know, practitioners. It's nice just to have basic concepts to be able to introduce clients and patients to. I think it's so helpful.
Well, sometimes too, it's like, you know, you may have had a psychotherapy experience, but it was beneficial, but felt like a little incomplete.
Yeah.
You know, like there was more of an existential dimension or a philosophical dimension that was missing. Or you may read a lot about, you know, Buddhist philosophy, but then you're at a loss. It's like, well, how do I practically put that into practice? You know, and you know, there's obviously, you know, tools in Buddhism for putting it into practice, but sometimes, you know, those seem esoteric, or, you know, it's like, do I have to go to a monastery for 5 years to practice stuff? You know, and it's like, no.
And you know, that I want to jump in, because as you say that, putting them into practice, that's why you jumped out to me. In this world of social media, Seeing you, it was brilliant. You put some of these things into practice on TikTok. Quick and easy, right? Because sometimes we want fast, we want easy concepts that we can get. And on TikTok, I believe I saw a video of you and you were sharing some concepts. And one of the concepts was talking about control, anger, or lack of control and anger. And you used your hand. I'm wondering if you can talk about that or show that to the listeners.
Well, first of all, the brief TikTok, it's not so much about that we all in modern times have a short attention span, but I have a belief that usually when we're doing dysfunctional things, it's real complicated and convoluted. And usually healthy stuff is simple and straightforward. So I think concepts that are simple and straightforward kind of help ground us into healthier things.
Absolutely.
So anger, a common negative human emotion fraught with stress, ancient times, modern times, there's anger. And in my experience, 9 times out of 10, if you're pissed off about something, it's because you're trying to control something that in reality you don't have any control over.
There you go.
Mind wants to control out there. Out there is pissing me off, and if out there would just change, then I would feel so much better. So the next time that you're angry, ask yourself, what am I trying to control? If it's anything beyond the end of your fingertips, see if you can reframe the situation, because the reality is we only control fingertips on back. And that's not about being a helpless waif in the universe. It's actually very, very empowering.
I love that.
I'm controlling, just myself. And so if I'm controlling the right thing, I'm going to be more effective.
What is within my reach, and using that, just holding up your fingertips, right? Holding up those fingertips, I think, is just a great visual. I love visuals. It just helps us remember. So that was brilliant that you described it that way.
Yeah, well, it's a nice exercise, like to use your anger constructively to cue you. Negative emotions, you don't have to push them away or say, get away from me. Say, oh man, I'm feeling angry. Oh, well, that should cue me to ask myself, what am I trying to control? And just kind of look at the end of my fingertips to reground myself.
I love that. We need tangible things to work with. So that's brilliant. I'm wondering, thinking about that, can you give us maybe some other key concepts that maybe you discuss or you describe in your book that you think are essential for integrating Buddhism and therapy?
Well, a real core basic concept in Buddhist philosophy is the middle way. And it's the observation that a lot of times when we suffer or get all stressed out, is we're operating in the extremes. So one extreme is, I think that I'll suffer less if I just get everything that I want. And so I'm always chasing my desires. I want one more thing. I want a new car. I want a bigger house, and I'm always, moving, trying to get more, and thinking that I'm going to find happiness at the end of that quest. That fuels thinking of, I'll be happy just as soon as. And I don't ask myself, why am I not happy at this moment?
Absolutely.
The other direction is trying to avoid suffering by insisting that I always be comfortable. So I don't want to have a negative emotion. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to be uncomfortable. And I must avoid that at all costs. So I'm going the other way, trying to avoid, but that's part of life. Right?
That's part of life. And we get caught up in black and white, right? Black and white thinking.
Well, and that's a CBT concept.
Yes, it is.
It's like all or nothing thinking, it's either this or that. when really, we missed the shades of gray. So hanging out in the middle, and that was attributed to the Buddha, his main epiphany when he became enlightened was it's like, oh yeah, because the historical Buddha was a wealthy prince, and so he had all his worldly desires, anything anybody could want, but yet he felt dissatisfied. And so then he went out in the countryside trying to become enlightened, and a practice at the time was people denying all worldly pleasures and wandering around in the countryside, starving and not enjoying themselves, and goes, that doesn't work either. So getting everything I want, that doesn't work, and denying all worldly pleasures, that doesn't work either. I'm going to go sit under a tree and figure this out. And that's when he said, avoid the extremes, hang out in the middle.
Avoid the extremes. I'm going to use that again as a practitioner, hearing you say that, the middle way. Talking to you a while ago, can you bring in the eating the cake? The analogy of eating the cake. I thought that was
it's like, I like cake, so I'm going to eat a cake. And since it's my cake, I'm going to eat a whole cake. And then I'm going to eat another cake because it tastes so good. And if I just eat all the cake that I can possibly find, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Except I'm not. I'm miserable.
So
then I'm like, oh, cake bad. No cake. No cake. I'm going to deny myself cake. I'm never going to eat cake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's no fun either. Hanging out in the middle, maybe I eat a piece of cake.
That's it. That resonates within me as well as many people, right? Whether it's cake or ice cream or the pizza, it could be indulging in food. It could be things from gambling. It could be things dealing with
addictions,
addiction, all of it. Yes. The middle way. Brilliant. I could sit here and hear all of these tools and strategies all day long from you. I want to know more a little bit about, I guess, some other key concepts of your book and how you feel that we can relate or bring it into everyday living.
Well, the outline of the book is it sort of runs through in Buddhist philosophy what's called the EightFold Path. And it's kind of 8 key practices for enhancing well-being. And I kind of walk through the Buddha spin on that, and then say, this ancient concept, here's how it kind of fits with modern psychology. So, one aspect of the Eightfold Path is right understanding. And it doesn't mean right, like right or wrong, like a moral creed. It means right, like effective, sort of like the right key for a lock.
Got it.
So it's right in the sense that it reduces suffering and services well-being. And so to do that, right understanding, we have to see things as they are. We have to see reality as it is and not fool ourselves or distort it or confuse our perceptions of reality with reality. And so there's a lot of things to understand, and some of those are ancient concepts, and some of them are modern psychology. Like for example, I might be a kind-hearted person. I have a lot of compassion for, people that suffering in the world. But I have to keep in mind that while my compassion is unbounded, like I can have a limitless well of compassion for all the suffering in the world, but my time, my energy, my resources, and my influence, those things are bounded. So understanding the difference between what's unbounded and what's bounded is really important for seeing things as they are. My passions are unbounded. My time, my energy, my resources are bounded. My interests may be unbounded, but there's only so many hours in the day.
I'm hearing you, and I love this concept. I'm wondering if you can break it down even further and give us more of like a more concrete example, something that we could see in everyday living.
Accept the reality that every choice involves a loss.
Tell me more.
Well, usually we don't like to suffer losses. That's bad, right? But it's
Absolutely.
inescapable. It's baked into the cake. So
Mhm.
if I choose this, it means I'm not able to do that. There's only so many hours in the day.
Only so
Time,
many hours a day. Absolutely.
time is finite. And
Mhm.
because it's finite, it involves choices. And hopefully, we make choices that maximize our values. You know, if
This
I
is
make bad choices with my money, my money is finite. And if I make bad choices with it, at the end of the month, I'm not going to be very happy. Same with my time.
yeah. Hearing you say this, Dr. Jones, it brings us into the moment, right? I'm hearing the concept of the middle way, but I'm also hearing kind of the concept of mindfulness and keeping us present with these topics.
Yeah, mindfulness is a key part of Buddhist practice, Buddhist philosophy. It's
Mhm.
also a key part of modern positive psychology. So, mindfulness based cognitive behavioral therapy, that's like a thing, it's well researched. And so the term gets thrown around a lot, but a lot of times it's like, well, what does that mean anyway? It's like,
Yes.
does it mean my mind is full? And it's like,
Right.
I know, it's like I got all that junk up there. What a basic definition of it is um, mindfulness is a mental modality. So it's kind of like a state of mind. And it's when I'm very aware of what I'm experiencing in the present moment, but
Mhm.
without judging that moment harshly.
Without judging that moment harshly.
And
Thank you.
what that last part means is I'm not putting a narrative on top of my immediate experience. And, the way we're made, we can't help but judge a little bit,
Yeah.
like pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. But like if I'm in a waiting room and it's hot because the AC is not working, I could say, oh, it's a little unpleasant. Or I could say,
There. I'm
or,
noticing.
or I could just say, what's wrong? Who's in charge here? And I'm uncomfortable and I shouldn't be uncomfortable. And now I'm pissed off. And
Yeah.
that's not being very mindful. So mindfulness is just being aware. In
Taking it in.
contrast, we have analytical mode. So analytical mode, um, that's what people use a lot, like in their jobs, but a lot of times we get overdeveloped in that mode and underdeveloped in mindful mode.
Mm.
Analytical mode is A, should be B. How can I figure out how to close the gap? A should be B, close the gap. It works for a lot of like solving problems. Mindfulness isn't A should be something else. It's just A.
It's just a.
It's like,
Can
oh,
you get
there's a sunset. I don't say, oh yeah, but that one's not as good as the one I saw, in Hawaii. It's just, oh yeah. And it's the same with my feelings. So there's some things like talking with somebody intimately
Mhm.
or dealing with my feelings. Mindful mode is more effective. A lot of times, if I take analytical mode and aim it at my feelings, A should be B, close the gap. Oh no, the gap's not closing. Now I have a bigger gap. Try harder, think harder. Surely I can think my way out of this. Now my mind's just going 100 miles an hour, and we've all had the experience of maybe overthinking.
Hamster on the wheel. It's
Yeah,
going.
that's usually when I'm in analytical mode, when maybe mindful mode might be a lot more useful.
This is more reason to tune in. I'm talking about we're talking about mindfulness. We're talking about your book. We're talking about Buddhism practices. I'm hearing concept of balance. But listen, more reason to tune in because this is like getting some free therapy here.
They're just little, I like to call them gold nuggets to put
I
in your
like
bag.
that, a little gold nugget. Can you give us a gold nugget when it comes to the concept of mindfulness and maybe something we can incorporate with like breathing?
Well, You want to think of it as kind of like a mental muscle.
Mm.
So just like any kind of a muscle, it gets stronger with exercising it, right? Um, so, if I'm always in analytical mode, that muscle is going to be really well developed.
Mm-hmm.
But mindful mode, if I don't practice, it'll be underdeveloped. And when I'm in analytical mode, my awareness is following the thought stream. When I'm in mindful mode, my awareness is following my immediate stream of experience. All right, so that's, all big deal and philosophical. So how do I practice? Well, you peel off your awareness, and a way to practice is focus on your breath. That's boring. Yeah, I know. So try to make a little game out of it. Is my breath on the in part or the out part?
I like that.
Well, that's still boring. Well, okay, why don't you count your breaths? In out one, in out two, in out three, in out four, in out five. Okay, this isn't too hard. In out six, in out seven, in out eight. I'm kind of hungry. I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch. Maybe I'll have a hamburger. Or maybe a cheeseburger. Oh, I shouldn't have a cheeseburger. I'm getting fat. What happened?
Mine's slipping away.
Oh, see, now I'm following the thought stream again. Not a problem. We're just practicing. So yeah, uncouple from the thought stream. Bring your awareness back to your breath. Reset it back to one and begin again. In out one, in out two, in out 10, in out 12. It goes again. Oh, I'm the worst meditator ever. I can't get the hang of this. Those are all just more thoughts. Uncouple and then come back. And so the useful things are happening when I stay grounded on my breath. And useful things are also happening when I realize my awareness got captured. So, like when we're overthinking, wouldn't it be a nice skill to be able to go, all right, this is not useful, and uncouple? And then your mind naturally just wants to go on its way. But a lot of times what happens is we keep fighting with it.
I love the way you're describing it. You're making it real, Dr. Jones, because that is how our brains can work, especially with busy day-to-day living. It's hard to stay present in the moment. So while I'm trying to breathe, I'm thinking about what I got to make for dinner. So I love it.
We're always like, we practice being in two places at once. So when I'm at work, I'm worried about home. When I'm at home, I'm worried about work.
Yeah.
And that divided attention, then when my kid's talking to me, or my spouse is talking to me, I'm not fully present, right? So it's just a way of kind of anchoring. But while we practice, it's real important to practice in a way that's gentle. So you don't want to fight with your mind. If you fight with your mind, who's always going to win is your mind.
Absolutely.
So we don't push thoughts away because we run into what's called the pink elephant problem. So if I say, James, do not think about a pink elephant.
Guess what?
Well,
there it is.
All right, you're just not trying hard enough. Try harder.
Yeah.
Well, see, the harder you try, you're adding the energy to the thoughts. So we're not wired for negation. We can't push a bad thought away. We can't push a problem away. Because what happens is it keeps coming back front and center. So what do? Well, hold it gently. I don't want to hold it gently. It's icky. Well, if you do the different experiment, hold that pink elephant gently. Don't push it away. Just hold it gently. What do you think happens?
Just sit there and hold it.
Well, but like all day long, what do you think happens? If you hold it gently, it starts to morph. And before you know it, you're thinking about that hamburger again.
Yeah.
So that's what our minds do. Our minds naturally want to go on to the next thing, unless we're fighting with it.
I'm hearing the terms, I'm hearing, resetting. It's important to learn to reset. I'm hearing about our energy. And one of the most important words through this for therapy, psychotherapy for Buddhism is balance, being able to achieve balance. And as I'm thinking about that, I'm wondering if you have any other advice or inspirations that you can leave us with that play into this whole world of balance in our lives.
Um, well, I think a lot of times when we lose our balance is when we forget that concept that we touched on briefly earlier. The middle, if you have a big long stick, if you hold it in the middle, the stick is balanced. So if we kind of ground ourselves in the middle and avoid the extremes, we keep a balance.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do extreme sort of things, but you have to have balance when you do those things. Like, for example, I learned this in doing ultramarathon running. So you run ridiculous miles, but the recovery days are just as essential as the long runs. So if somebody goes, I'm going to run an ultramarathon, so I'm going to run 30 miles every single day. Good luck with that, because sooner or later something's going to break, because that's extreme. You're not balanced. Right?
And that's life. That's life.
Right. Balance between the modes we were talking about. It's not like analytical mode is superior to mindful mode or vice versa. It's just that they each have an advantage in different situations. So being balanced is being able to
practice both, look at both,
move back and forth in an easy way, and see, now I'm balanced. A bird needs two wings to fly. You just got one wing, I'm going to run into trouble.
I love how you describe these things, Dr. Jones. You do such a beautiful job of making it seem real and concrete for us, for the listeners, to be able to practice these things and know about these key terms and how to achieve them. One other thing I would love for you just to touch on, I heard in probably one of your videos, the whole concept of it's not what's out there that will make us happy. Can you just touch on that one?
Well, I'll touch on it by sharing a story of how I got interested in all this stuff back when I was a kid in middle school. There was this program on a television show called with David Carradine called Kung Fu, and it was about this kid who was an orphan, and he was raised in a monastery in China. And, the whole show would be flashback scenes because he had to go to America to escape the emperor. And so the outline of every show was he's wandering around Western United States in the 1800s, and there would be somebody that was having some trouble of some sort, and then he would usually defend them. There'd be some kung fu fight at the end. So being a middle school boy, it's like, my friends and I are like, oh man, did you see that? That was so cool. When
and get pulled into it.
Kick, it's like, yeah. But I had one best friend that was, kind of an old soul. And so we thought the fighting was cool, but we also enjoyed the flashbacks to the monastery when he's talking with the monks. And those were all like, Buddhist teaching. Mm-hmm. So, you teach them about just all sorts of Buddhist concepts, in these flashback scenes. And so, little kid, and then fast forward, he's this adult wandering around. And my young middle school brain is saying, this guy can kick butt, but like most of the models of people that, could kick butt, they were arrogant or, and he was quiet and humble, but yet he protected innocent people.
Mm.
He's walking through the forest, he's peaceful. If he's talking with somebody, he's peaceful. If he's talking to a kid, he's peaceful. If he's talking to an arrogant adult, he's peaceful. What's with this dude? And so I started connecting like, those little lessons from the monks growing up and peaceful. And this dude, even if the bad guys are, like trying to insult him or embarrass him or attack him physically, he's just chill. So I go, man, it's not out there that makes you all stressed out or not. It's like what the mind is doing. So that was sort of like the seed of my interest, and so that's what the core teaching of CBT is, and the core teaching of Buddhist philosophy is. It's like it's not out there that makes you feel. It's the meaning that you give out there, how you react to out there. That's what makes you feel.
Perfectly said. And here's the reality: we get caught up in what's out there. We look forward to seeing what's out there. We look forward to maybe validation or things from other people or what makes us happy from other things. So that was perfectly said, that a nice balance in bringing it back to our own mental health and what makes us happy, right? Yeah. Thanks for describing that. I love it. I can see how it even resonated when you were a child, the back and forth between the excitement, the Kung Fu, but also the peaceful part, right? The Buddhism.
And then in that, the seeds that were planted there, and then subsequent, exploring Buddhist philosophy and then how it fits with patients that I see that are struggling. It seems like a real common thing that gets people in trouble, that disturbs their well-being, is their ego. And when I use the word ego, I don't mean like arrogance, like, he's got a big ego. And used in this context, ego is like a static idea that you have about who you are. So I'm a this, I'm a that. Sometimes, like, I'll talk to somebody and they have low self-esteem, and they say a lot of self-deprecating things, and they can't figure out like why life is such a struggle. And I go, man, do you think it might be that big ego that you have? And they'll go, what? I don't even like myself. What do you mean I have a big ego?
Yeah.
Well, you have this static idea about yourself that you're lugging around all day, and it's getting in the way. So, and the way it gets in the way is that people are often, once you get wrapped around the ego, what keeps you wrapped around the ego is measure. So I ask myself, who am I? Am I a good person or not? Am I adequate or not? Well, to answer that question, I have to measure. Right? So what do I measure? Well, I have to think of some dimension to measure. How nice I am, how wealthy I am, how smart I am, how athletic I am. Those are all things I might choose, right? Well, why did I choose those things? I mean, there's 50 other things I could have chose.
Sure.
Well, it's completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
Well, let's just accept that for a moment. So let's take how wealthy I am to see if I'm adequate. I have to have an anchor point, a cutoff. Above, I'm good. Below, I'm falling short. Well, I probably do better than, most of the population, so I guess I'm good. But man, compared to Bill Gates, I don't have anything. I think I might be kinder than an average person, but man, compared to Mother Teresa, I have my moments, right? So let me see. what dimensions I choose are arbitrary. And then what anchor point I select, that's arbitrary too. Maybe I need to rethink this whole measuring business because I'm trying to get a bead on something that isn't static in reality. But I'm treating it as though it is. And that's why, it's like, oh, that's just who I am.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you can't change anything then. What are we going to do if that's just who you are?
Absolutely.
Right? Well, then people go, okay, I get it. You made a good case, but what am I supposed to do? Well, think of yourself as a verb instead of a noun. So instead of who am I and is that adequate or not, is what am I doing and how's it going? What am I doing and how's it going?
What am I doing and how's it going?
Yeah, what am I doing and how's it going? Oh man, it's not going so good. Well, make an adjustment. Make an adjustment in your actions.
It's almost like an inventory, a question that we need to ask ourselves.
What am I doing and how's it going? Oh, I'm speaking in a way that's causing my spouse to be upset. Oh, how's that going?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm upset too. Okay, make an adjustment.
I was just going to say it leaves room to make an adjustment, to fine tune, to think about things differently.
Yeah, but see, if I'm lugging around my ego statue, even if I get it all shined up, like, oh man, look at that, that's awesome.
I can't be in that space.
Well, it doesn't last. Or maybe just as soon as I think I'm all that, then I look to the person to my left and go, oh yeah, but they're bigger or stronger or better. In my mind, I'm losing and see now I'm inadequate again. So what am I doing and how's it going? It's more fluid, it's lighter.
Absolutely.
And it's easier. Because, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the universe doesn't care who you are.
Unfortunately, isn't that the truth?
It doesn't care who you think that you are.
Not one bit.
But it does seem to care about what you do. So your identity, it really mostly just gets in the way. You mentioned that, I train in martial arts and, I've won world's masters in my division several times. So I go to Las Vegas and I win. Oh man, come back and look forward to those high fives from my friends. So I have the identity of being a tournament gold medalist. Right? That's who I am, legit.
Yeah.
How much do you think that matters on the very next roll in class? Not a bit. Even though, the buddy that gives me a high five, oh, good job, man. Congratulations. Now I'm going to try to choke you.
Yeah. In the moment, we feel good, but then.
But see, the identity is not important.
Absolutely.
In the moment, what's happening? What am I doing and how's it going? Oh, this 20-something's trying to choke me. Oh, I better adjust myself. Well, it's the same off the mats in day-to-day life. What am I doing and how's it going? If it's not going so well, somebody's here to
play with me. I like that. What am I doing and how's it going? Dr. The one thing that stands out for me, clearly, besides your experience, your wisdom, pulling Buddhism and psychotherapy, I love the way that you can tell a story. I love the way, I think storytelling is so important. How you tell a story and listening to your story, you have these informative, these educational, as you said, these little golden nuggets that you leave us with that we can actually practice, right? And we can practice, and I can walk away from this saying, gosh, I know something about therapy, about Buddhism, and I feel like I have something tangible to work with. You do a beautiful job of describing that. So thank you so much.
We're talking about making an adjustment. It's sort of like changing course. I'm sure you, like most people these days, you have GPS, right?
Yeah.
Well, not too long ago, we were on vacation in an unfamiliar city, and with my wife, we're visiting my daughter, and we're just all yakking. And in the midst of yakking, I missed the left turn.
Happen to all of us.
Right. And so, I'm thinking, oh man, you're so stupid. Oh, you weren't paying attention. You missed the turn. And then the nice GPS lady goes, at the next intersection, make a U-turn.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had to laugh. It's like it's like beating up on myself. And the
Yes.
nice GPS lady just, okay, just make a U-turn, readjust.
Yes.
You still,
And this
still
thing,
on
again, this is life.
Yeah, and so a lot of times, like, oh man, we veered off a little bit. No big
Yeah.
deal. Why you have to make that a permanent part of your ego? And that's what shame is. When people struggle with shame, they attach it to who they are instead of guilt, which is attached to behavior. So I can
Well,
regret
even
my
as you say that,
behavior.
I just want to point out, because that actually did happen to me today, where I was busy, doing something and fiddling around in my car, and I missed the turn, I had to go back. We get caught up in those moments, right? Whether it's the thought, the feeling, that emotion that's coming up. And it's important to say, again, we're talking about energy and balance and looking and reassessing and resetting, as the GPS woman did for you, resetting and thinking about the bigger picture with it.
Right.
We're out of time, and I would love, we could have, I'm looking forward to many more sessions talking with you and to hearing tools and
Oh,
tips.
anytime.
I appreciate you sitting and being able to have this time with me and sharing your wisdom. I want to mention that you can find Dr. Jones's books I say books because not just this one on psychotherapy and Buddhism, but Dr. Jones has a book coming out. They're on Amazon. And this one is going to be about martial arts and therapy, psychotherapy. Dr. Jones, just tell us about your upcoming book.
Oh, it's might seem a strange concept to people that don't train in martial arts, but it's the idea of martial arts training as a pathway to mental well-being. Remember, I was telling you about the monk and how chill he was? Well, I saw a connection between that and his training in the monastery, and then have since discovered that over the years. And there's actually a lot of academic research that supports that. Because hardly anybody's ever physically attacked in modern times, It's more like the practice seems to speak to us in a real visceral sort of way. And so, the book kind of explores that. So I'm sort of excited about it. Should be out there.
I'm going to follow up talk with you because I feel like I am a walking testament, just seeing how my family, my children, and what being in martial arts and friends and other people on the outside, how their experiences, the mental health, the mental well-being component. There's such a strong correlation, and I would love to spend another talk just talking about that.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Well,
thank you so much
for being able to share, on your program. And,
thank you. Again, I can't thank you enough. And I would love everybody to know, hop on social media. Dr. Michael Jones he has books on Amazon, and you can also find him on TikTok and other platforms. So he is a wealth of knowledge. And I just want to thank everybody for listening and tuning into us. Stay tuned for more.
All right. Well, hey, James, have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.